Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content, and if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the beautiful and very premium Benchmade Auto Fact. It's actually operated with the axis lock. You pull down on it and it deploys, which is interesting. That's always been Benchmade automatic axis lock knives have always been kind of, you know, rare birds or odd birds in the Benchmade line, but it's always fun to take a look at one. They're just interesting in general. I will be linking this guy right down below, as well as the original manual fact. If you like how this knife looks and you're like, I wish there was a manual version, there is. I'll link it down below. And I'll also link Benchmade knives in general right down in the description so you can check out what else they've got going on. Thank you to Benchmade for sending this in for review. Just wanted to, full disclosure there. Thank you so much to my generous patrons for supporting me. There's a link for Patreon down in the description. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy because it is not a little knife. We are zoomed out quite a bit today. Overall length is coming in at 8.75 inches. Overall blade length is definitely 4 inches. Be careful about that. This is an automatic knife and it is a 4-inch blade. Cutting edge, 3.6 inches overall. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and its little brother, the Rat 2. So you can see here, yeah, long and skinny and pointy is the name of the game. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Para 3. Once again, same story here. It's not big in the sense that it's like thick or heavy or wide or tall or whatever. It's just long. Last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and its little brother, the Mini Griptilian. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy. Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them down in the description of this video. As is usually the case with Benchmade knives, the pivot is likely going to be a T10, and that is the case. There's no reason to check the other ones. They are T6. That's always the case with T6. Yeah, be careful. T6 screws, especially shallow ones, have a tendency to strip a little easier. Just be careful. Have some, like the tools that I recommend. Use those. Axis lock knives are traditionally not super fun to take apart. Of course, it is possible to take apart and put it back together. I've done it many times. It just can be a little bit frustrating. On top of that, we have some extra, some extra spice going on in there with the automatic feature. So, quite a few, not a crazy amount of screws, but there are quite a few screws, and there's a lot of stuff to get around. So just be careful if you're going to take it apart. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here it's not a thick knife. About the same. A little bit of contouring going on, but not super thick. Height and length up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here, yeah, it is longer than the Para 3. About the same length as the PM2, perhaps even a little tiny bit shorter. The ratios in this thing are incredible. Height, nowhere near. It actually makes this thing, for how long it is, it actually makes it very, very easy to carry. So that's pretty cool. Go ahead and get a measurement of thickness on the blade on this guy. Let me zero that out. I'm going to guess 125 thousandths, because that's... Nope, it's thinner than that. Really? 100 Wow, okay, well that's interesting. That's not what I was expecting at all. I'm going to do that one more time, just in case. That really is surprising. Okay, no, it's not super thick at all, so there you go. Weight on this guy. So we're looking at aluminum bolsters. We're looking at a carbon fiber overlay, or scale, I guess, however you want to call that. Whatever you want to call it. And then we do have steel on the liners here. Yeah, definitely steel on the liners. The inside, you can get my flashlight down in the description. The inside doesn't really look like, well, it's got a little tiny bit of milling back there. Can you see that little circle? So there's a little bit. It really doesn't feel all that heavy, but I think I'm being thrown off this on-drill user interface on the flashlight, guys. It takes a little bit to get used to. Anyways, weight. What am I going to guess here? 3.75 ounces. Nope, I was wrong. 3 ounces. Holy crap. I told you, I'm thrown off by how long and... Oh my gosh, there's going to be so many that's what she said jokes. So yeah, there you go. This is a 3-ounce knife. That's crazy. Is that really the case? That technically passes for ultra lightweight on this channel. That's amazing. The ratios, the blade to handle ratio on this. If you're a ratios person, you get big into that, right? Amount of usable cutting edge and overall blade length to overall length ratios, right? Or weight to blade length or weight to cutting edge ratios. No matter which way you cut it, sorry. This is pretty incredible, right? And it also is not difficult to carry thanks to the slender profile and it basically just being a long, you know, rounded off rectangle shape. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about this knife. So, first thing here, mine is showing prototype, June 2020. This is identical to a production version, so there is no difference between this and what you're going to see on like Blade HQ's website, for example. Fit and finish on this is wonderful, as is the case with pretty much every Benchmade, every newer Benchmade that I've handled here recently. You guys know, if you've watched my channel or other channels in the past, you know, we've brought up, you know, the bevels on the cutting edge aren't even, or there's blade play, whether the blade's centered or not, or the blade's off-center, and when you center it, it's too tight, and this or that, it's grindy. That seems to be eradicated from these newer models, and that's more of the same here. This knife came perfect. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, there's no blade play or anything like that. Another thing that I want to point out here is that the pivots are so sensitive to a particular adjustment. If it does come slightly off-centered, the pivot can be adjusted, and it takes such a small turn. It's so smooth, and with a combination of adjusting the body screws, some people have asked me, does your centering trick, the video that you did on centering, does it work on an axis lock? Yes, it does. Slight adjustment between the pivot and the body screws will get that blade centered. It will continue to have, you know, good action. In this case, it's not an automatic action, and you can get them to lock up completely and totally solid, which is the case here. That's impressive. I'm very happy with what I've seen from Benchmade here lately. I really don't have an issue with that. I noticed here, I tightened this earlier before the video, and I want to show everybody exactly what I'm talking about. This is a good opportunity. I think I actually over tightened it. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. You can see that blade is just ever so slightly leaning off to the left. If I put this in here, and I'm going to give it the tiniest turn, now we appear to be exactly on center. Still no blade play. So there you go. That's my point. Actually tightened it a little bit too much. But I wanted to test that, you know, exactly how much it would affect the action getting tighter and tighter. You can get, these things seem to be more friendly, more tunable, right? There's a larger area where you can get the action the way that you want it, have it centered, and have it, you know, I guess more or less tight, which affects the action differently between an automatic and a manual. But anyways, there you go. Fitment of everything is excellent. You're seeing here the transition between the bolster and the scale, and you're like, oh, that looks like a gap. No, it was intentional. It was done exactly that same way on both sides. Lips and everything, nice and flush. There's nothing sticking up or looking, you know, crappy or out of place, which, you know, this is an expensive knife. It's a Benchmade. It's a US-made knife, right? We're going to pay that much money for a knife, then you want to see little things like that correct. The blade looks awesome. We have this, I'm always hesitant to say DLC. That's kind of my default dialogue is DLC when I see it coated. Truthfully, I'm not sure exactly what Benchmade uses for their coating, but it looks nice. And I'm going to assume it's durable because that's been the case in the past. You can see the Benchmade logo up here, and then on the other side we've got S90v. Normally you will not see this here. It'll just say S90v. S90v, holy cow. That's pretty neat. S90v, very premium steel. Stainless steel, holds an edge for a ridiculous amount of time. If you're wondering, new people, you've heard of steels like M390. S90v will actually hold an edge longer than the M390. It is not as tough, and it's not quite as stainless. I'll let you guys read about S90v steel through, basically through Knife Steel Nerds, Laren Thomas. Sometimes I go in depth about steel, and I feel like I'm giving information that's not perfectly beneficial to people who are curious. seriously, I would recommend checking out Laren Thomas and Knife Steel Nerds for a much better explanation and more scientific information about steels like that. But very premium and appropriate considering what they want for the money. Once again, bevels equal on both sides. Perfect. The edge is perfect. Nice and glassy smooth with no nicks or rolls or anything like that. The tip is super duper pointy. This is not what I'd call a hard use knife. Dare I say, this is truly a tactical knife. I almost never say that on this channel, and I hate defining it, right? But this knife feels pretty tactical, right? But anyways, yeah, it's a thin stock. It definitely yields a super pointy tip. Puncture tests, I think this goes without saying. Puncture tests are going to be made pretty easy with a knife like this. You do have a flat that goes right down the middle of the blade and carries out to about 50%, giving it this kind of daggery sort of spear point look. Obviously up here, this is a swedge and this is not sharpened. That would be super dangerous actually if it was sharpened, so that makes sense that it's not. It comes down to what you'd expect. Even considering that the blade's stock thickness is not all that, robust, it does not come down to an absolute laser beam. Will it cut? Will it slice? Absolutely it will. It definitely will. And it'll continue to slice for a long time, considering what it is made out of. This is not an incredibly durable geometry. Backed up by a steel that is not known for toughness means you should not be jamming this into, wood or in between hard surfaces and trying to pry around. Don't do that. That's a good way to snap your blade. But that's not what this knife was made for. Definitely not. Action on this guy. Very powerful. Actually pretty satisfying. These Benchmade automatic knives, like some of the push button ones are alright. Whenever I handle one of these, and I don't think there are very many, I'm trying to think beyond the Auto Adamas. I know there are some other ones, but these always seem to be really powerful. Like, we are definitely in ProTech territory as far as firing power. I will say that because of, now on this knife it's not so bad, but naturally, when you're pushing, let me get another automatic knife out here real quick. When we're talking about automatic knives like this ProTech Rockeye here, where your hands are when you're pushing the button, you're a little bit more secure. So you push the button, right? On this knife, the way that I hold it, it's somewhat similar, but I find that I'm bracing a little bit differently back here. Especially on this knife, it's long and slender, so I really have to make sure, number one, you don't want to be holding like this. You want to keep your finger out of the way of the path, and then you got to pull down. You'll adapt to it, but it's definitely not as secure a position as you would be on most standard push-button automatic knives. So, likeliness to accidentally throw or drop this thing is slightly higher. I haven't, thank goodness. But yeah, you got to be careful. There's a lot of power with that blade, and it's a little bit awkward with the axis lock. But as is the case with all things, you carry and use it all the time. Get used to it. You'll adapt to it, and you'll be just fine. Moving on here, we talked about the blade, we talked about the action. There is a safety. This is a safety that a lot of people are used to with Benchmade, sort of push down and then, kind of slide it. It does work. It's got a lot of retention, so it's not like flopping around back here, right? You push that up, it's not going to deploy. There is no way to deploy this knife other than using the automatic axis lock, right? So if that safety's on, I kind of like this safety because it's not an obvious thing, right? If you have this laying somewhere, where the intention is to keep it out of reach of other people, but then somebody comes by or maybe a child or something comes by and picks it up. If the safety's on, it's not going to deploy, right? If it's off, it definitely is. You can also lock it out in the open position and it should stay. I don't think there's much of a chance of you accidentally engaging or disengaging that lock during use. So I don't really think it's a problem. A lot of people don't like safeties on automatic knives because they're like, the point of it is to get it to deploy quickly. I don't know. Yeah, it deploys quickly, but does it deploy any quicker than like a pair? Not really. It's just a feature, right? You pull down on it and then the blade's going to swing out. I think there's an argument to be made for dependability of deployment or reliability of deployment. In some situations, you might have a knife that's got a lot of dirt and debris in it, and you try to deploy it, it doesn't deploy all the way, right? But in terms of speed, those are nonsense arguments. OTFs, side opening automatic switchblades, right? Flippers, or the thumb hole deployers, these are manual knives, right? They can all be deployed at the same speed. So speed of deployment, I've always said, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, just turn the safety off. When you're using it, you don't feel like anybody's going to happen across it and accidentally throw it or poke themselves, right? And then if you're going to lay it down somewhere for a little bit, you leave the safety on, right? you can do that. The reason I don't have a problem with this safety is it's just not in the way of anything, and it doesn't seem like something you're going to accidentally actuate while you're using it. It's just, it's not really a problem. Do you gain excess strength in the lock when it's locked out and has the safety on? Yeah, a little bit, but again, the design is not overly durable. That's not going to save the geometry, right? It's just the lock. You can snap the blade and still have the lock, and holding up. So yeah, don't let that make any false promises to you. We have a couple of standoffs back here that I think look excellent. Nice and reflective, kind of like a shiny black finish on those. I'm going to guess that they are aluminum or they're steel and have some sort of coating on it. I think they look great. Standoff or pillar construction designs are awesome because as the knife gets used and it gets more dirty, you can just run a rag through there and clean it out if you want to, or you can just leave it linty, whatever. Pocket clip. Basically perfect. It does not have recessed screws, so you might have to fight that a little bit, especially if the seam of your pocket is kind of thick, but that's not really a big deal. And there's no lanyard hole. Oh no! Oh, we miss it so much. I don't care. I like that there's no lanyard hole. That means they didn't have to work out where to put it. This carries absolutely deep. There's literally nothing sticking up out of your pocket, which is cool because sometimes, like this is kind of it can be kind of an alarming knife, right? So if you don't want it to be showing, right, because you're trying to be respectful to the people around you, or at least that's the way I think of it, right? So if I'm going to carry this, I don't want it like this. Obviously, I don't want this big crazy thing sticking out. It's just it's a tool that I'm going to use in a moment of convenience, right? So I don't need the knife announcing its presence. But anyways, yeah, I think it's great. You have that continuous rise on the bill. It's nicely rounded off. In and out of the pocket is a breeze because these surfaces are nice and smooth. It's really great. I don't have a problem with the pocket clip other than the non-recessed screws, but it's not really that big of a deal. This side, much the same as the front. This is an ambidextrous lock, which means lefties can enjoy this. And there's a place for the pocket clip on the left side. So left-handed carry, right-handed carry, it's exactly the same except for which side you're adjusting the pivot on, right? Like I mentioned before, the centering on this knife is now dead perfect. Is it? Yeah. You guys know what that feels like, the check center. I'm also checking it through a camera, right? Making sure it's dead perfect. No blade play, up, down, left, or right, which is fantastic. So there's a lot of good here for what this is, right? Personally, I do not like long, skinny knives. I don't have much of a use. There's not really day-to-day use for me that demands this style of knife, right? I think a lot of the reason that your everyman might carry this is just because they like something like this. If you like it, there's no reason you can't buy it. If you think it looks cool, even if you don't have a specific tactical use for something out of Benchmade's black class or their tactical class, if you like it and you can legally carry it, then sure, that's fine. I don't have a lot of use for this. It's long and pointy and slender. I kind of like something more like for EDC along this size, but doesn't mean it's not good for what it's supposed to be. Automatic firing power, excellent. Ease of actuation is pretty good. Fit and finish is just excellent. Oh my gosh, excellent fit and finish, right? Pocket clip, great. I mean, there's the little things that I can complain about. T6 screws, definitely not going to be easy to take apart. It's just not going to be, right? But yeah, it's not super thin behind the edge. So, if you're looking for a performance slicer laser beam, this is definitely not it. But performance slicer laser beams are not what the knife world or the quality knife world is dictated by, right? That is a preference. Obviously, we want our knives to cut, but knives can do a lot of different things and fill a lot of different roles. So certain geometries, with certain steels are going to be better or worse at lots of different types of stuff. For general EDC, this has a lot that you don't need, but it's made very, very well. My biggest complaint, I got a lot that another thing here that I want to point out, despite this not being my flavor, this is a good looking knife. I mean, whether you like long skinny blades or not, this is nice. Black with the kind of dark gray and then the carbon fiber. Oh, it's nice looking, right? It's kind of like business tactical, suit and tie tactical, James Bond tactical, right? That's what I get from this. This is fancy tactical, right? Benchmade should have a fancy tactical class. Okay. Anyways, this is my biggest issue with it. What is the price on this knife? $350. No, that's too much money. I like that. Listen, I've had a great experience talking with Benchmade. I'm really excited about their 2021 line. They had some really cool stuff. And some of it was priced reasonably. Like I was totally on board with the price for the mini Adamas. But I mean, think about this. Like, look at a knife like the 940-1, like one of the most famously overpriced knife. Like the 940 design is so popular and everybody loves it, right? And that's kind of the pinnacle 940 is the 940-1, or to a lot of people, right? Carbon fiber S90v. That thing is famously overpriced at $275, right? It's kind of absurd. This knife also using carbon fiber steel. We got a little bit of aluminum, S90v. It's longer and it's got an automatic feature. Why is it $80 more than that? I don't understand. This knife makes a lot of sense to me at about $280. I mean, I can get that. I'm sure there is some excess. And here's the thing. I can't be like, no, it's exactly X amount overpriced, because I don't work for Benchmade. I don't create these things. I don't know the cost that goes into them. Something that I should add here is that Benchmade has one of the best warranties out there. These are US made knives. It costs more money. Doesn't matter what the materials are. I mean, obviously it does matter, but I'm saying you make something here in the United States, it's going to cost more money than China, for example, right? Even if they're using S90v, aluminum, steel, and carbon fiber, this is just going to cost more money to make. I don't know what the cost is with this knife, but I'm just looking at the competition out there, right? Yeah, it's got premium steel and premium fit and finish. $350 just seems way too high to me. I think the maximum that I could just barely choke down would be like $300, but I'd still be like, ugh. This is very well made. It is executed properly. It's got elements that you would want, you know, in an expensive knife in this territory, right? People who love how this look and they're really, really into the whole automatic axis lock thing, right? If you look at that price and you're like, I really want that, I'm going to go for it. Is it going to feel high quality? Yes, it definitely does feel high quality. It's just, man, when I think about the knives that I can get for $350, US made or not, it's just kind of, yeah. And a lot of the stuff that you get in this territory is extra. It's embellishment. It's kind of that fancy, right? Do you want the, do you want a regular dash or do you want the leather trim dash? You know, when if you've gone to buy a car, right? If you've ever looked at new vehicles, you look at trucks, right? Different trims of trucks, for example. Some of them have a regular dash. Some of them have a leather dash. Leather will hold up a little better over time, but I mean, let's be honest. It looks a lot better and it feels a lot more premium, and a lot of what you're paying for there is that, right? So are you getting functional benefit with some of the additional features here? Well, yeah, but it's like, is it, you know, can I put my finger dollar for dollar on it? $350 exactly what it is that you're getting. A lot of it is the presentation, the fitment, which a lot of people do put value in. The more you value that, the more appropriate that price is going to seem. But again, just looking at competition, you know, and considering all these things, US made and the materials and stuff like that, it still feels a little high to me. A little high. It seems really high to me. $300 I think is about as, this is one of those knives where I really feel like it should have just been like, you know, $290. Because what is the standard fact? The standard fact is aluminum and S30V. It's way less expensive than this. And it still felt kind of, you know. So yeah, it feels a little high. In fact, it's high enough, and this is a specific enough design, and it's automatic and super long, which is going to make it illegal. That makes who I can recommend this knife to so narrow that, unfortunately, I can't be like, yeah, rush out and get this. Again, you like how it looks. You're not going to, you know, the price tag you feel like is something you can choke down as long as you're hearing that it's made really well, then yes, go for it. If you can legally carry it, I think you'll really like this. For everybody else, I don't think this is going to be the best thing. I think if you really want this look, right, and the automatic thing you don't care about, or it makes it illegal, go for the standard fact. It's way less expensive. It's still kind of high, but it's way less expensive. This was cool, though. I'm really happy to see that Benchmade's, increase in quality control is translating to all of their stuff. It's not just particular things. It's extending to everything in their line. So this is very cool in that way. I don't know that there's a whole lot more I can say here, guys. We're approaching 25 minutes now, so I think that's going to be about the end. Thank you again to Benchmade for sending this in. I will include this in my Benchmade knives playlist. Once again, check this knife out down in the description, the standard fact down in the description, and Benchmade knives in general if you'd like to see what else they've got. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.